So good afternoon, everyone. My name is St. Clair Williams. I'm with the Department of Planning and Development. I'm here along with Sarah Godfrey, Community Engagement Coordinator for Department of Planning and Development. And today we're going to give you a condensed kind of briefing on the current Reston study and comprehensive plan amendment process, which is currently underway. And again, it's going to be a brief presentation, kind of just going overview of some of the key recommendations in the draft that has been, or the proposed language that has been released for the community for review and comment. So before we get started, just kind of wanted to kind of go over the agenda. Like I said, it'll be a brief presentation, and then we will open it up for any questions. And we have staff from various county agencies that have been a part of the process that are here to answer any questions. And we do have Supervisor Walter Alcorn, Supervisor 100 Mill District, who's here. So just kind of wanted to give you, Supervisor, an opportunity to kind of kick things off before we get into the presentation.
Thank you very much, St. Clair. I want to thank folks for joining today. Thank DPD and other county staff members on the call today for providing this opportunity to summarize the proposed changes and also to get feedback from folks. And actually, before we get started, I see Maggie has her electronic hand up. So if somebody could.
I will unmute her.
Okay, great.
Okay, Maggie, you are unmuted.
So much. I just wanted to let you know that I love to listen and learn, but I learned a lot. I also like to hear people's feedback. Anyway, if I am the only citizen on the call, please, you don't have to do it for me. That's all I'm saying. So Supervisor Alcorn, I just offer that.
That's very kind, Maggie. That's we may have some folks come in and out, and we've got a couple other participants or attendees. So yeah, let's.
I will be a captive audience then.
Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah, thank you very much. But no, I mean, we want to share this information with as many people as possible. So, you know, we want to be here and give everyone an opportunity to hear and have the opportunity to ask questions. So moving forward, Sarah's just going to give some kind of directions on folks who want to participate when we get to the question and answer section.
Yes, so seems like Maggie had it down. You're going to want to raise your hand if you'd like to speak when we get to the Q&A. And you can see the little hand icon here. If you've got like a condensed window, you might need to click the little 3 circles to access the hand, to raise your hand. Just a reminder to lower your hand if you are done, if you don't have another question or comment. And then I don't think we have anyone on their phone, but if you do end up needing to call in, just press *3 to raise your hand, and I will unmute you. And then if you have any questions or thoughts, like as the presentation is going, and you want to pop those into the chat, we do recommend doing that, and then we will get to those as we can. Anything outstanding during the Q&A, I will raise and we can answer your questions or comments. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, so getting into the presentation. So the 2020 Reston study was authorized on January 14th, 2020 by Supervisor Alcorn. And it was authorized to evaluate how new development might impact Reston residents, public facilities, and to provide opportunity to address growth-related issues within Reston. You know, the Reston comprehensive plan had last been updated in there were a phase 1 and phase 2 in 2014 and 2015. And since that time, there have been over 30 rezonings approved within Reston. Additionally, you know, there had been some comments expressed or concerns expressed by the community on how new development would affect existing residents and impact on public facilities. So again, this study provides opportunity to address these and other growth-related issues. Just to give a briefing on the comprehensive plan itself, again, it's the primary resource of county staff, the Board of Supervisors, and the Planning Commission and other decision makers for evaluating land use applications, making policies about the county's built and natural environments. The comprehensive plan describes the community's land use vision, priorities, goals, and ideally it represents the full spectrum of community, young and old, renters and homeowners, minority communities, and all income ranges. And again, it sets forth kind of areas that may be recommended for more development, areas where the recommendations might be to retain, existing uses and characters, or changes in land use. So for this particular study, a 31-member task force was appointed by Supervisor Alcorn. It was initially planned for everything to kick off in March of 2020, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to scramble to figure out how we were going to host it, with host task force meetings, with quarantine going on. So everything was moved to a virtual platform. So staff provided briefings on comprehensive plan topics and provided resource and information support to the task force throughout the whole task force process. The task force process consisted of 58 full task force meetings and countless what we call work group or subcommittee meetings, which were also held to work through various topic or chapters proposed in the draft, and again to work on developing that proposed plan language. And the task force endorsed their proposed recommendations in August of this year. So as a result of the task force process, the task force, the proposed text includes revised language for the existing plan elements or the plan chapters in the adopted plan, which include, planning principles, land use, transportation, parks and open space, and others, and also proposes new plan language for 3 new chapters or elements of the plan. And those topics are community health, equity, and economic development. So now we're just going to go through, and again, I said this is kind of a condensed version of the presentation. We do have a longer presentation that is available on the Reston Study website. So folks can, please go to that site and take a look, and you can see all the slides. So again, we're just going to focus on some of the key chapters for today. So starting with land use, the task force did propose land use changes for 4 areas of Reston. The first was the village centers. For the village centers, and those specifically were Hunters Woods, South Lakes, and North Point. Lake Ann and Tall Oaks were not a part of this study. But the recommendation for the village centers that I mentioned are for basically the existing residential located adjacent to the non-residential areas will remain unchanged. So they will stay at their current densities. And proposals for new housing in the non-residential areas within these village centers would require an amendment to the Reston Comprehensive Plan before consideration. Moving on to the what's called the Town Center North area. This is an area that is jointly owned by Fairfax County and Inova, and it's generally bordered by Barron Cameron Avenue to the north, Bowmantown Drive to the south, Town Center Parkway to the west, and Fountain Drive to the east. And the proposed recommendations assigns all residential development to blocks 2, 4, and 6 of this area, which are blocks that are owned by Inova, and also recommends a maximum of 1,000 dwelling units, which is about 20 dwelling units per acre, and 150,000 square feet of non-residential development for blocks 2, 4, and 6. And for blocks 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9, which are the county-owned blocks, these areas are proposed to be reserved for civic uses with adequate ancillary retail. Another area that was looked at and in the draft is identified as the eastern section between the TOD and proposed extension of South Lakes Drive and North Dulles Toll Road section, which I think many of us kind of recognize as Samuel Morse Drive area. And this area is south of Sunset Hills Road, north of Reston Station Boulevard, and east of Michael Faraday Court. For this area, the proposed plan language adds a development option to permit residential developments up to a 1 point FAR. That area is currently planned for office and industrial use, but again, it proposed to add an option for residential development up to 1 point FAR. And also for the Roland Clark Place residential mixed use section. This is an area, it's along Roland Clark Place, south of the Dulles Airport Access Road and north of Sunrise Valley Drive. The proposed plan would allow the provision of public uses to satisfy the required 25% non-residential use required on 2 parcels that are located south of Dulles Toll Road. They are currently planned for residential mixed-use development with a total of 75% residential and 25% non-residential. So again, the proposed language would allow public uses to be provided to satisfy that 25% non-residential recommendation. Moving on to transportation, the proposed recommendations expand the vision for a multimodal transportation system that provides safe, efficient, attractive, and dependable travel options in an equitable way for all current and future residents, employees, and visitors of Reston. Updates the active transportation and area-wide public transportation guidance for Reston, adds placemaking guidance, also modifies the local street network in the transit station areas. The proposed changes also include the addition of 8 transportation planning principles, which include to balance future land use with supporting transportation infrastructure and services, to provide a complete street network that accommodates all modes of transportation for all users, and promote the safety, health, and wellness of community members. The next topic is housing. The proposed recommendations encourages the expansion of housing options for vulnerable populations in areas within walking distance of transit, and also the development of senior housing in areas within walking distance of transit. It also emphasizes the goals of maintaining and preserving all existing market and committed affordable housing. And should mention the key change for the housing section comes regarding rental workforce dwelling units and regarding the average median income or AMI targets for rental workforce dwelling units. The proposed language recommends that within the Reston transit station areas, the recommendation would be a total of 12% of any developer proposing residential development. 12% of the units would be workforce dwelling units, with 6% of the total units targeted to the 71 to 80% AMI, 3% of the total units targeted to 61 to 70% AMI, and 3% of the total units targeted to up to 60% AMI. I believe it was in 2000, might have been 21, the county updated the workforce dwelling policy for the county. And with that, the countywide targets for rental workforce dwelling units was set at 4% of the total units to 71 to 80% AMI, 2% to total unit of the total units at 61 to 70% AMI, and 2% of the total units up to 60% AMI. So for the Reston TSAs, it would be something that is beyond the countywide policy. But for areas in Reston outside of the TSA areas, again, or the Reston non-TSA areas, the recommendation would be consistent with the countywide policy. Moving on to parks and open space, the proposed recommendations focus on ensuring that consistent quality and quantity of parks are provided, including recreation open space for all residents and employees in Reston, regardless of age, race, and income. A variety of recreation experiences to serve all ages, backgrounds, interests, and abilities to meet the needs of the culturally and economically diverse Reston community, to provide for indoor and outdoor cultural activities, community gathering spaces, and to establish inclusive and equitable community engagement to inform and guide planning for parks, recreation, and open spaces in Reston. The proposed parks recommendations, I think 2 key changes are the proposed language does remove references to parks previously referenced in the Reston plan, and those are Lake Fairfax, Stratton Woods, and Fred Crabtree. The task force felt because those parks are actually outside the, I guess, the geographic boundary of Reston, that they should not be included in the plan. The proposed recommendation also revises the athletic field guidance for Reston to recommend that based on population needs as determined by the Fairfax County Park Authority, at least 12 full athletic fields should be provided, including one in or nearby each of the 3 transit station areas in Reston. And this would be through development contributions of primarily land, new facilities and improvements to increase capacity of existing facilities, and secondarily funds. Moving on to the environmental stewardship recommendations, the proposed recommendations specify an environmentally related vision and planning principles expected to guide development in Reston. They introduced the concept of biophilia and the certification of Reston as a biophilic community, and offers insights into various environmental issues germane to the community, describes the challenges facing the community, and offers specific recommendations to address Reston's challenges. The recommendations are broken up into various topic areas, and those are community design, sustainable landscapes, watersheds and water resources, air and climate, and sustainability. Moving on to the heritage resource recommendations. I think the key changes language was added regarding the recognition of the Association Drive campus as a heritage resource. This campus is significant in the community planning and development as part of Robert Simon's original plan for Reston. And given the importance of the Office Park complex, the draft plan recommends consideration of preservation and or adaptive reuse with any potential development proposal. Moving on to public facilities, language was added to ensure that the current and planned public facilities will adhere to the principles identified in the comprehensive plan, including public participation in decision-making, addressing the housing needs of all ages and incomes, ensuring environmental sustainability, and using green technology in facilities. And the public facilities section was also expanded to include law enforcement, libraries, health and human services, housing and facilities for the homeless population, public recreational and entertainment facilities, water and sewer, and solid waste and recycling. And the public arts chapter was updated to ensure that developers coordinate with public art projects with Public Art Reston early in the design process, to ensure that public art is successfully integrated into development proposals, and to ensure that there is transparency in the Public Art Reston review process. As I mentioned, there were 3 new chapters proposed for the Reston plan. The first is community health chapter. The proposed community health chapter recommendations aim to ensure that planning and development in Reston prioritizes achieving health equity, and the objectives for the community health section are intended to benefit the health of everyone in Reston, regardless of race, income, age, immigration status, or any other measure. The recommendations for community health are provided in 5 interrelated subcategories, which include health care and services, active living, food systems, climate health, green infrastructure and healthy buildings, and social cohesion. Another new chapter is the equity chapter. This chapter builds on the concepts outlined in the One Fairfax Social and Racial Equity Policy, which was adopted by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors in November of 2017. This policy commits the Board of Supervisors to consider equity in decision-making and in development and delivery of future policies, programs, and services. The proposed equity recommendations are intended to continue Reston's longstanding commitment to removing barriers that perpetuate injustice in our society and unite Reston around a shared set of goals for its future, and to use planning to build a more inclusive economy and connect people to opportunity. And the final new chapter is the economic development chapter. This chapter is consistent with the current Fairfax County policy plan for economic development. And the recommendations are broken up into 2 kind of categories. One are the kind of the goals and objectives that are necessary to support land use decisions in Reston and should be, evaluated with, development applications in Reston. And then the second set of recommendations are identified as more aspirational. They apply to other Fairfax County organizations and they're grouped together, and they would not be required to be addressed as part of individual land use decisions. So with that, again, that covers just kind of a briefing of the key chapters in the proposed language. Just to let people know where we are in the process. Again, we are in the community engagement process at this point. We've been, and we have more meetings come up. We've been hosting in-person and virtual meetings to provide, information and give opportunities for questions. And those meetings I think we have meetings scheduled through the second week of October at this point. And then we also have on the Reston Study website, we have a link to a public comment window where you can provide comments online. That window will be open through October 28th. And we really want people to provide the comments through that link. It really gives an opportunity to kind of evaluate the comments, track the comments, and be able to also kind of see what are the, consistent comments that we're getting the community to look at really what are the concerns that we need to take a look at. So please go to that link, provide information, provide your comments, and again, that will be open through October 28th. As of right now, tentatively, we're looking at going to the Planning Commission in December and going to the Board of Supervisors in January of next year. So that's kind of where we are at this point. So with that, I will open it up to anybody who has any questions. And, we have staff and others here that can provide some feedback. Thank you.
All right, I'm checking for any raised hands, but we did have a couple callers who joined. And so I just wanted to remind, if you're on the phone and you want to speak, please press *3 and then I can unmute you. Do not have anything in the chat. I don't see any hands raised on here either.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, even if folks don't have questions at this point, again, we really want to get comments. We want to get feedback from the community. So if you don't have questions now, please go to the Reston Study website. You can actually just type in Reston Comprehensive Plan Study in Google, or you can go to the main Fairfax County webpage and keyword and search, type in Reston Comprehensive Plan Study, and it will take you directly to the page. As I said, we have the kind of the public input link there, so you can provide your comments, and that will really help us be able to, kind of see what the concerns are, so that we can address that in our evaluation of the draft recommendations. So, again, any questions?
I do see a hand raised on the phone.
Okay.
So, caller, I've unmuted you.
Yes, good morning. This is Rob Whitfield calling from the Fairfax County Taxpayers Alliance. And I caught part of last night's meeting as well, so I'm sorry I don't know the name of the gentleman just spoke. And I got there late last night as well. So I tuned in at about 12:15, and by that time, I didn't hear anything mentioned about schools, which I regard as a public facility. I don't know what you do. And obviously transportation. So first question about schools. What if anything?
Yeah, so schools are included in the public facilities section. The staff task force did work with schools to, understand what the schools needs, and those are reflected in the draft recommendations. So schools is included, and you can take a look at that in draft language. I did cover transportation. Again, I would ask you to go to the Reston Study website. Also, the draft language is accessible there. We also have, like I mentioned to folks earlier, we've done some longer virtual meetings, and we do have the slides available on the Reston Comprehensive Plan Study site as well. So you can also get some additional information there. But there is extensive transportation chapter. The task force worked very collaboratively with our Fairfax County Department of Transportation staff on that. So I would say, yes, take a look at that. There's a lot of detail addressing transportation for Reston in the draft recommendations. Thank you.
And I had previously provided to Walter the request that the print copies of the draft master plan plus maps be made available at the Reston Public Library, because based on what I heard last night and just now, there is not enough information for the public to grasp readily the major issues and changes and their implications. So I hope.
Rob, it's Supervisor Alcorn. I got your request, and there was a hard copy placed in the Reston Regional Library yesterday afternoon, so it's there.
Thank you for that. And I found out reading the instructions to last night that I had not read the instructions for parking, so that was my bad. But very definitely, we need to have a robust conversation about. I haven't read, unfortunately, the transportation section yet, but in terms of mode of travel for commuters and residents. And I'll have more to say on that when I finally read this stuff. So no sense in trying to, but I did point out yesterday the need for us to consider Reston within the broader context of the Dulles Airport area. And, because the implications are that the communities around us are also going to grow. And we need to see the net cumulative impact of that. Not specifically within the comprehensive plan, but just to the effect of how the overall changes elsewhere and among our neighbors may impact. For instance, the transportation department did studies about 5 years ago, and I've forgotten the name of the young lady who was helping put that together. But when I asked them, had they considered what the impact of the additional traffic using the Dulles Toll Road exits in Reston, considering the Tyson's master plan growth, they really didn't give me an answer. And that was back in 2017, 2018. So it's not just the growth within Reston, which will cause additional traffic. It's the traffic coming from the other major employment centers nearby. So I will try to. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, thank you for your feedback. We appreciate it. Again, I will ask you to, please go to the public input link, provide your comments so we can be aware of all your comments. But thank you for your feedback. And I think we want to allow some time if there are other folks who have questions. So thank you very much.
I did get another question. We have someone who said, can you address provisions for dealing with homelessness? Do you provide for ultra affordable housing?
Give me 1 second. I'm going to ask, I know we have staff. We do have Brianne Fuller from Housing Community Development. Are you able to provide some feedback on that, Brianne?
Yeah, I don't know that we have specific provisions for that laid out in the comprehensive plan, but we're always looking for ways to address homelessness and the ultra low area median income levels. But it's certainly something we can take into consideration for this plan amendment.
And St. Clair, I'll jump in. There are provisions in the proposed guidance for Reston Town Center North for, in addition to the shelter rebuild, also to locate permanent supportive housing, which is intended as the next step for people coming out of homelessness as a permanent solution. So that part is definitely in the plan.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I'm double checking. Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Well, yeah, if you don't have a question, we don't want to keep any people for an extended time, but again, want to thank everybody who joined us. Again, I know I'm saying this a million times, but it's really important. Again, we ask you to go to the Reston Study website, go to the public input link, and please provide your comments. Again, we really want to, hear from the community. We want to get all the comments. And again, it'll help us. It'll help everybody. It'll help Reston. So please take the time, go to the website, provide your comments, and also on the website. I mean, there are links if you have any questions after this meeting. Again, we have all the contact information where you can submit questions, and we will provide feedback. So thanks everybody for your time, and have a good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.